Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing this evening? I'm just making sure that I'm updating everyone that we are now live for the discussion. Okay, so everything should be good. So, how is everyone? Today's been just been a yucky day, but I'm excited to share with y'all and talk to you about Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. I really enjoyed this book, in my opinion. Um, Prior to me reading this book, um, I was tempted, and I was reading some reviews. I saw there were some good ones, really good ones, and then I saw some of them that I'm like, okay. So after reading the reviews, and then I read the book myself, I completely loved it, and I loved how it was written. But anyway, let me read the description of the book, the synopsis. And so it says the future of storytelling is here. Life has thrown Zellu some curveballs over the years, but when she suddenly dropped from her university job and her latest novel is rejected, all in the middle of her sister's wedding, her life is upended. Disabled, unemployed, and from a nosy, high achieving, judgmental family, she's not sure what comes next. In her hotel room that night, she takes the risk that will define her life. She decides to write a book very unlike her others, a science fiction drama about androids and AI after the extinction of humanity, and everything changes. What follows is a tale of love and loss, fame and infamy, of extraordinary events in one world and another. And as Zellu's life evolves, the lines between fiction and reality begin to blur. Because sometimes a story really does have the power to reshape the world. So, this is Nnedi Okorafor's newest book that just released last month. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts about it first off before I get into how I feel about it. If you want to be in the chat, it's up to you. Um, and if you want to join the live, let me know, and I can send you the link so you can, we can talk, whatever you prefer. Um, I had a lot of emotions like while reading this book. Like I felt for Zellu. Like at first I didn't know what to make of it. Like as I'm thinking of the title, Death of the Author, I'm just going in, seeing what it's about. I'm thinking like, oh my god, the author, is she going to die? Like I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, we are about to lose Zello. Oh my gosh. From the very beginning of Five Star Read from her, everything was absolutely beautiful. I gave it a 5 star. I also gave it a 5 star, Gabby, because I loved it so much. If you want to join the live, let me know. I don't know if you're busy. If not, I'll just leave the link if you want to join. So let me know. But it was so good. I didn't know where it was going though, because I'm thinking like I'm really enjoying this author or Zellu, and I'm like, is she going to die? Like I did not know what this book was going to take me to. Like she worked for the university. Apparently, some students was accusing her of hating on their work or whatever, which that's crazy to me how they fired her like that based off of what the students were saying. It was just that really like boggled my mind. Girl, you want me to take over? Because if I'm on, I will. I could talk about. I don't mind. Hold on, let me invite you. I do not mind chatting to you about this book because I think me and you are definitely on the same page when it comes to this book because I truly loved it myself. Like it had me in tears in some moments, and I'm like, it's been a minute since a book had me in tears. Hold on, where are you? I'll send this to you because I was just so frustrated with Zelu's family and her siblings. I'm like, all right, y'all are getting on my nerves so much. Like, okay, I'm gonna take this back because since I read the synopsis, but the cultural aspect of it, I was into that too because I'm not familiar with Nigerian like because apparently I do have Nigerian in my blood, you know, my ancestors, but I don't have any clue about the culture unless I'm reading. And I feel like we get a lot, or not a lot, but most of the information regarding Nigerian culture and Nigerian families, especially traditional Nigerian families. Hey, Gabby!
Hi, 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 hi. Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this. Oh, my Lord. Oh, where do I even begin? So, the university, shame on them,
Yeah.
first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was a I was a student when I was getting my undergrad in a creative writing class. And mind you, all of us were people getting their creative writing certificates and all that. So, we all had some kind of basis in writing. I don't know a single person that would not have gotten reamed if their story was bad by a teacher.
Right.
Like, that is part of what it is to be in college.
Right.
You're going to be that sensitive.
And right. And I was thinking, like, wait, what college did it mention what university this was? I don't remember if it
I
was
don't think,
a specific university or not, but I was just like, what kind of university is this?
yeah, like, there is not a single university or college or anything like that. There is no creative writing professor that is not going to be completely and fully honest if your book is trash.
Right.
And if the professor's not, the other students are definitely going to, because they know what it's like to, be a writer, and they know what's trash and what's not.
Right. And I feel like in the editing process, you're going to see nothing but red all over your paper.
Oh my God, exactly. Like, it is so rare for there to be an author that young specifically that is not going to get red all over their paper.
Right.
Like, there's editing processes for a reason. No single author has ever gotten their book published after the first draft. It's
Right.
never happened.
Right. There's so many rejections, and some of the
So many.
rejections that people mention when they first eventually get their debut book published. It's unbelievable. Some say 14, some say 20. I'm just like, that has to be so discouraging, and I felt that for Zelu, especially, like, all those rejections, and then she gets fired like that. I'm like, how are you going to fire a professor that's doing her job?
Mm-hmm.
And in my head,
I had teachers when I was in college where it was not even creative writing, but my English classes. I had a professor who he graded on a 4-point scale for any of your papers, and if it was garbage, you practically were failing the class. 4 points for every paper.
Ooh, that sounds so brutal, but that's
it was. It was, and that's exactly the point. It's college, so I'm sorry, but she definitely got gypped. She should have never had that job in the first place, in my opinion.
Yeah, she shouldn't have. But then again, what in my head, I'm like, was it more than just her students complaining? Was it because of what she looked like and her disability? Like, I'm thinking, like, it had to be more than just what the students were saying.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like, y'all are students. Why would she be hating on y'all's papers? Like, and so that was just not justified. I didn't understand that part of, like, getting her fired. But then again, if she didn't get fired, she wouldn't have been motivated to write a book that she had no idea was going to be a success.
Yeah, and this is definitely one of those stories where I think it's, we all hit that point where something has to, we have to hit rock bottom in order to go back up. And this is definitely one of those stories where we hit rock bottom. Where else do we go but up at this point?
Right.
And it just so happened that this up for her ended up being the best of ups you could have ever asked for.
Yeah, it had to be hard because also her family was just downing her the whole time. Even when she became successful, it was still like a question in their head. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, girl, like, why are they? And then I get it, like, the whole Nigerian, like, the traditional Nigerian family, but still, like, she got a book deal, and then she got a movie on top of that. Like, how successful can you be? Like, and I get it. Her siblings, one's a doctor and all this.
Lawyer and all these great things. I hated the older sister. I'm just gonna say the eldest sister was a piece of work.
I said it. I was like, when I read it, I'm like, why is her sister such a bitch? That's what
Yes, exactly.
I was just like, what the hell? Like I did not like it. Like, and Mazizi, I actually was liking him. I felt like he was the only one that gave her some type of freedom, and there wasn't any. They weren't in a relationship, but they would mess around with each other.
Yeah, but he was the only person that not only would allow her to live her life the way she wanted it to, but he also gave her the ability to express herself fully in front of him. She
Mhm.
couldn't do that with a single person in her family.
Right.
She had to go outside of her family, the people that are supposed to be her closest knit community, to find that.
Right. Like,
And that's depressing in
but
and of
it's
itself.
so real. You'll have family members that say they're for you, but they're not necessarily are. And then you have that one person who you randomly meet and they just get you and you feel so comfortable. I think that happens with a lot of us where we have that one person where we're just comfortable being vulnerable. And she didn't like being vulnerable because of her family, but I don't know. It's just like with him, she's like, here's my book, and he loved it. And and with her family, it was the opposite reaction.
Yeah. Well, and I mean too, I wonder, and I'm genuinely curious about what the views are with in the Nigerian culture, what the views are about fiction in general, because obviously they have their own stories, they have their own myths and folk tales and all that stuff, right? But when it comes to like science fiction and fantasy, what is the general consensus thought within that? Do they think that it's actually entertaining? Is there any kind of like, oh, this is like, you know, get away from me kind of thing with it, or what? Because it seemed like there was just no interest whatsoever, and I don't know if that was because they just didn't believe in it, or if there was a cultural aspect within that.
Maybe cultural, even though I think they, some people take fantasy and stuff within books literally.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's more literal for them and it's not like something fun to read.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like the whole Children of Blood and Bone and how it's talking about it's the Yoruba people, and people are upset about it because the Orishas and stuff like that, it's not necessarily a true thing.
Mm-hmm.
So have that aspect of like, this is not how it's true, how we're supposed to be portrayed. This is not accurate. But from Zella's point of view, it doesn't seem like she was going for something that was realistic, like, or talking about the gods or whatever, or anything, any type of folk regarding Nigerian culture or anything like that. It was literally sci-fi. Robots and stuff, but she was just using some of the things she knew because that was part of her culture. But I don't know. But I think they were mostly upset with her because of her exos or whatever.
Oh my lord, that whole thing pissed me off to no end, their reaction.
This is what she wants. Like, why are you tripping on what she wants to do? They're like, why are you wearing those things? I mean, it's her. Like, if she wants to wear them, what is the problem? Why don't you just be supportive?
Right.
But I guess Nigerian heritage and stuff as traditional families, they look down on that. And then after reading this book on how they were trying to kill her and stuff like that because of her, I'm just like, it's crazy. But then it breaks down of how for people with disabilities in Nigeria, it's like impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible to live because not only are they just looked down on in general, but then they're not prospected when it comes to any kind of marriages, especially with that being such a huge thing of the culture. Like, it's one of those situations where your heart breaks because of the fact of how she became disabled in the first place. Then your heart breaks again because of how her family treats her because she's disabled for most of her life. Then again about how her family across the pond, how they feel about it, and culturally how everyone views it. And then it breaks even more when she has an opportunity to actually change anything about her disability and no one supports her in it.
Right.
Except from even Mazizi. Even he was kind of like, I don't know about this, but do what you want to do.
Yeah, like I didn't like him being a little weird with that. I was like, Azizi, I had you were with me, and then all of a sudden you started to act a little weird. But
Mm-hmm.
I, after that little snippet with Mazizi in the ending of his little interview, I started to understand him better, and I liked how he embraced his friend too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that was huge. Because some people
Mm-hmm.
weren't accepting at all. It took him a minute, I'll say that, but he accepted his friend.
Well, and I think that though too, as frustrating as it was initially, right?
Mm-hmm.
How often is it that when we come across something we don't understand, it all takes us a minute? Or, maybe it's from my perspective in general, being, not in a minority group and being a part of, a larger group that is very ignorant of other cultures and other aspects of life, right? Being able bodied myself, being a white person, being, a white woman in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I might not necessarily understand everything right off the bat, but give me enough time, I'm going to be able to understand. Give me enough understand like time and space to be able to think through things.
Mm-hmm.
I will be able to understand and then therefore accept what is going on.
Yeah,
And
like.
that I really appreciated too, because I think that in itself is something that is part of a human experience to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people who will just remain ignorant and stay in that ignorance, but then the people that actually want to understand and they just don't at this moment in time, but are learning how to understand is
Mm-hmm.
such a powerful thing.
Yes, it is. And I was just glad that, he took that time, like you said, because there are some angry people that would just completely ignore that person or badmouth them or say some crap about them after that. Because, I guess also Nigerian culture, his friend, if he had other friends or whatever, they probably would have tried to kill his friend.
Mhm. 100%.
And it's like, okay, I like Mazizi. I like him out of everybody
Yeah.
else. Her mother talking
Mm.
her being a princess or whatever. Okay, cool. But I think it took her husband Zelu's father to pass for her mom to actually see her. Maybe.
And that's another person where I think that she didn't get the time and the space to really understand. Like, I think, for one, let's think about this, right? She grew up a mom grew up in a very different kind of world initially.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got that, a very kind of more rich upbringing, very royalty upbringing, very set sort of ways, set sort of expectations. That's what she grew up in. You
Mm-hmm.
take her, you put her in a position where she also then falls in love with a man who is very different from her, but from another aspect of culture that she then has to learn. So we know she's able to accept people,
True.
despite differences.
Mm-hmm.
But then you take her and take her over to a new area where she's looking to make a good life for her and her family. But also adhere to her family values and adhere to family traditions.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure. And then having a disabled daughter is very likely something that is also very pressure filled.
Yeah.
My thought with her by the end of this book was mom was just so very set in her ways. Very much one of those older generation parents where they have a very set, rigid system of how things are going to be and how they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And then when anything subverts that, there is no space in the brain to be able to even look at it differently.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then something so catastrophic that happens where she loses her life partner, it's like a switch flips
Yeah.
and everything changes. And she's like, wait a minute, why am I harboring all of this anger and resentment for my daughter
Mm-hmm.
when she's just trying to make a life better for herself than what I was able to give her?
Yeah. And I feel like there'll be moments where you have to go through something tragic in order to wake up and realize, like, I'm really stuck in my way and
Mm-hmm.
I need to just be there for my daughter. Um,
Yeah. I gotta go get food out of the oven real quick, so give me 1 second.
yeah, no problem. Let me see. But there's so many things that can be unpacked within this book that I truly enjoyed. Hold on. Somebody's outside.
Hubby's gonna go get the food taken care of.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, so the other thing I want to bring up is a very specific scene that I found to be scary and very terrifying, but also one of the most amazing moments of the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
The moment where Zaylu almost gets kidnapped.
Oh, yes.
And she's running with her exos
Mm-hmm.
for literal miles.
For the first time, too. Never thought
Yes.
she was capable of doing that.
What a powerful moment to showcase how far not only has she come, but how much more she's capable of being able to do, especially in a high intense situation like that.
Right. Just because she has a disability doesn't mean that she has to be placed in a box and have a limit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why she got those exos to begin with. Can you imagine if she didn't have them? They would have got her.
Yeah.
They would have killed her.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah.
And I can see, piggybacking off of that, I can see where people are like, oh, there's a white savior complex involved with the scientist and everything. I get that, right? I can see where that would come in.
Yeah.
However, this is one of those situations where, as a white individual that sees that character, I see it as a white savior, but also as a savior in general, especially because the scientist, he knew what it was like to be a disabled person. He created his own prosthetics to help himself.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't he want to extend that to someone else? And yes, maybe there was some fame associated with it because he was going to be working with someone who was becoming extremely famous,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no shame in admitting that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that character goes further than just the white savior complex that I think a lot of people will initially put to him.
I think he truly was trying to help her and to realize, hey, sky's the limit.
Right.
There's nobody else. I mean, her dad was the only one besides, that had that mentality of like, you are capable to do whatever your heart desires,
mm-hmm.
regardless of what the world thinks you can only do, based on your appearance and your disability.
Yeah.
So I didn't think of him as a white savior. I thought of him as like a person who truly wanted to help her. I don't think it was for him being rich or being a white savior. I think he had the resources for what she wanted.
Mm-hmm. And the only reason I say that is because I think that there's a lot of times in any novel where you have people of color and a white person involved that is like, hey, let me help you with this. Like everyone makes the assumption that it's just a white savior, mm-hmm. right? I'm not someone that thinks, okay, this is 100% a white savior until there's nothing else substantially with this person. He actually got to know her. He spent all this time with her to not only make sure that the product he was creating worked, but that past that, she was living a life that she was happy with.
Right.
He supported her emotionally, mentally, and physically mm-hmm. with the exos.
Yeah.
And he's like, you take your time with them.
Yeah, he gave her options. I'm like, he didn't push them on her. She really tried them. And she, throughout the book, she could have just said, hey, I don't want them anymore. She had that option.
Yeah.
I will say, I was a little skeptical about like the ending of the book and what she took.
Yeah.
That I was like, are you sure this is safe for you and the baby?
Yeah, that I was skeptical too. Oh, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, that character too wanted to give her the option. He wanted her to be able to do what she wanted.
Right.
And I mean, that was actually the first time I'd ever heard of anything like any kind of medication like that for someone that would be going to space while pregnant. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't even think that was possible.
This is definitely some futuristic type of stuff for sure.
Right. Which would make sense considering if we're looking to, possibly down the line inhabit another planet, we're going to probably have to be moving a lot of pregnant women at some point.
True.
So
True.
how are we gonna manage that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, but like there's so much to be said too about her resilience, Zaylu's resilience throughout all of this, because I know there were so many times where I think any other person would have probably broken under the fame, and especially the backlash she got from time to time.
She got with that woman on live TV.
Oh, that pissed me off to no end, too.
Mad. I'm like, are you setting her up for failure? Like, like,
but that's what journalists will do, and that particular scene reminded me why I never wanted to go into journalism. Because I went in when I was in college, I initially started out going to be a journalist.
mm-hmm.
But I realized very quickly in my journalism classes how easy it was to manipulate things, to formulate any kind of agenda you wanted. And now look at the news broadcasters we have. Everyone has an agenda.
Every single one, manipulating one person after the other, making one person seem that they're the most evilest person ever. I still don't understand why she did that with her, though, like, to begin with. I mean, like,
because she knew that if she created any kind of buzz, bad or good, it was going to get her ratings up.
Yeah.
By exposing someone that was coming so high up, the star was raising so high. If she could somehow bring her down, it would bring her ratings up. That is all these journalists ever want to do.
And that's one thing that I hate about the world that we live in so much. It's like, how come we never try to bring people up? Why is it always trying to bring people down?
Mm-hmm.
Why do that? Why just be happy for that person? Why give some positive feedback to this person? Why are you trying to, like, you don't even know what this person is going through? You know, you're just an outsider looking in. Like, why would you do this to somebody that meant, like, you know? And I honestly, I thought like Zelu was about to give up. I'm thinking that she killed based off of the title of this book. Like,
yeah.
I thought like she mentally just couldn't handle it anymore. But
that was initially my thought too, was that this was more so going to be a story of an author's rise to fame and then ultimate death. Because let's think about it. There are so many authors, and not even just like fictional authors, but poets who struggle with things like mental illness, not just because of their own, like, you know, lives, but also because of the amount of fame or infamy that they end up getting in their lives. And like some of them, it literally causes their death. Because and not even just authors, but general stars in general. Like, there are so many people who, when they realize their impact, and positive or negative, it can spin so poorly very quickly. And actually, funnily enough, is talked a lot about in Blood Over Brighthaven too, which I'm currently reading. But there's so much to be said about how resilient Zaylu is. And especially with Mizizi, I think he was the one thing
that kept her
out of everything that kept her grounded. Even as distant as he could become, even as, you know, different from her as you could get, he was the only one who was willing to listen and willing to let her express herself how she needed and help her pick up the pieces when she fell.
Right. He was there. He was the only one there. And she also had her dad, but I feel like her dad only had a little bit of leeway what to tell her due to his wife. You know what I mean? So
right. Dad was very much like, hey girl, I'm gonna support you, but I'm gonna support you quietly because I don't want to upset mom.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because mom's scary.
Like, yeah, I gotta, you know, happy wife, happy life. Let me not
let's not rock the boat.
Yeah, let's not piss her off. It was nice to see read his interview about his stories and how Zaylu was the only one that was intrigued with his storytelling, and it just made me realize, like, this book particular has like 2 books in it. Sometimes I feel like there's like 3 books in this book, because I feel like we're getting Zaylu, we're getting her Rusted Robots book, and then I feel like we're learning more about Nnedi Okorafor as well in her life, a little bit.
I feel like this is one of those stories where it feels more probably autobiographical
Mhm.
than anything else, because I wholeheartedly believe she put everything she had, heart and soul, into this. And it's probably why this book feels more like a literary fiction piece than what we've seen of her before, because everything else that I know of hers, have yet to read, but everything I know of hers has been sci-fi, strict
Mhm.
sci-fi. So to see her branch out a little bit and write a story that feels so grounded and feels so real and raw, like you cannot even fathom how much she must have put into this of herself.
Mhm.
Like
Like,
how much of the fame aspect did she put in that she's directly experienced?
yeah. And she even admitted that she was scared to like write this book or even publish it because she just didn't know. And I'm glad she published this book. Like
I am so glad.
this is just it's so good, and it definitely is something that she it's a type of book that she hasn't written before. And the fact that she can write this type of book and her other sci-fi books along with this, like that, she is very talented.
Extremely. I mean, it's like I said before in like your sprints and stuff. If the Rusted Robots excerpts is any indication of the level of talent she has for writing sci-fi, I cannot wait to read her sci-fi books,
Mhm.
because the Rusted Robots book excerpts, oh my god, they were so beautiful and I loved every single scene.
Me
It
too.
just felt fluid. It didn't feel like, even though like they were at different points in the story, it didn't feel like we were so disjointed. Like whenever we got to the next part, it felt so fluid from the last part.
Right. And
That is such a hard thing to do with this kind of a book.
yeah. And I've never read anything like this. Like this is my first book that is literally formatted like this.
Mhm.
Literally writing a book about an author that's writing a book. And she's putting it so she's writing not only this book but another book to put in the
Mhm.
book. I'm like, that's a lot of work.
I Yeah, and I mean, I think of it too, like with fantasy, we get a lot of books that, they might have excerpts from other pieces of work over the world, right? Like excerpts from religious texts or excerpts from historical texts or whatever, depending on what kind of a fantasy you're working in. But
Mhm.
like to write a full out novel within the pages of a novel itself, that, holy moly, I only wish I had that talent.
Yeah. And man,
Like, save some for the rest of us, Nendi. Come on.
right. I'm really curious. Like, I really want to know how long it took for her to write this. Like, I'm curious.
I'm Yeah, I'm curious too, because I would not be surprised if this was something that's been ruminating for a long time, and like she was just waiting for it to get it right.
Yeah. Like, talking about Nigerian culture, but also the location is in Chicago. You have Zelu, who wasn't married, was had a disability. I'm like, she must have had all of this in her head. Like,
It's Yeah.
she must
And
have
it
experienced things too.
and it probably built up as time went on,
Mm-hmm.
because the aspect of her of Zelu getting pregnant, like how crazy must it have been to, I mean, I can only imagine how it must have been for you when you found out you were pregnant with your kids. But I it makes me like so excited for the day that I find out I'm pregnant, because it felt so like weird, but it felt so exciting at the same time when she found out.
Because as I'm reading this, I'm thinking like, because she even told Ms. Easy like, hey, I don't know if I can have kids. She was really upfront with him based on her age or whatever, and then come to find out she's pregnant, and then just like, it just seemed like it came all in full circle, and I was just excited for her. I know it scared her because she still wanted to go to space or whatever, which she didn't.
Mhm.
She didn't tell Ms. Easy she was pregnant, but I think since they have an understanding of each other, I don't think he would be upset. Maybe just a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, he was already upset with her about going to space in general, but then he was like, "You know what?
I'm a
This
supporter.
is what I love about you. You're like, literally, this is what I love about you. You
Right.
make me so upset and so angry with some of your decisions, but I can't be mad at you because you are doing what you want." You are doing everything that you have wanted to do your entire life, and you're not going to let anyone stop you, even me.
Right.
So how can I be mad at you about that?
Not, and he's not the type to say like, "Oh no, you can't go because you're pregnant." Like, because that was never their relationship with one another. And I think that
No.
also attracted themselves to each other, even though his history of dating certain problematic women. But he stepped out of his own box. He stepped out his own way and found somebody that actually they made sense. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, like it very much the way that he described it is it seemed very much like just the fates aligned at that point. Like
Mhm.
he wasn't looking for anything spectacular because he'd been getting out of relationships that weren't very healthy for him. He was just looking for a little bit of fun. She wasn't looking for anything serious either because, of her past history. And it just everything aligned. It was the perfect moment, everything aligned, and everything from there was history with them.
Right. And then the whole when they come down to like how she became, how come she had the disability to begin with because was of the tree. It's crazy how they mentioned the Hunger Games and that's how they played tag. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a violent game of tag if you're saying it's like Hunger Games.
I mean, but if you really think about it, the whole thing of like tag and catch me if you can, it's very predatory like.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's very predatory like because very likely thousands of years ago somebody came up with the idea of, hey, let's do this for practice because we have to go catch our food. Let's figure out a way to catch our food effectively.
Yeah.
Let's practice with each other.
Yeah. And the fact that she fell from the tree and stuff, I get it. That was the most hardest thing ever because she thought her hopes and dreams was just gone because she couldn't be an astronaut or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, it seems like the fates did that for her because they knew that she would be a success. It would have to take that sacrifice, even though it's not what she wanted, but for her to actually be motivated to do stuff that she wanted to do. And
Yeah.
And sometimes I think about that all the time. It's like, if I make this sacrifice, maybe it'll be worth it.
Right. And we all at some point in our lives are like, when is it my turn? When are my sacrifices going to pay off? Because a lot of us have to sacrifice a lot of things to even just be able to get through each day. I wonder if there was I don't know what it was, but there was something symbolic, I feel like, about the tree being dead in the first place. I can't put my finger on it. No, I don't even think it's important for me to know. But something about the tree being dead in the first place and that being the tree that she falls from, there's something symbolically significant with that I think Nendi will be the only one to possibly know unless she shares it with us.
Or like we say, it's the death of the author, but was it really a death or what? I don't know.
I mean, of the author, maybe not, but maybe of the death of the possibilities, the death of the idea of what she could have been. Maybe.
Because if she didn't fall from the tree that was already dead, would it have been a possibility that she would have went to space still and that she would have became an author? I don't think so. I don't think so because it was based off of the experiences that she was that she had as being a disability, and also how she was treated by her family. And I feel like that played a role in all like in her Rusted Robots. So if she didn't have that experience, if that didn't happen to her, I don't know if she would have became an astronaut or if she wrote the book. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but I also really liked the way with Rusted Robots how. Sorry, hold on. I liked how the whole thing with the AI kind of came about like toward the end of it because there does seem to be something very soulless about AI. I mean, if we look at how things are currently with AI images and everything being done with AI, it's very soulless. And I almost wonder if this was not necessarily a cautionary tale of sorts for Nendi, but if like I feel like Rusted Robots was very much an allegory for the way in which we view technology anymore. Like rusted robots, we've had robots now for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, they can wear down. But AI is something that, while it's soulless, is we're in excess of.
I feel like it also has the ability to take over, because remember, humanity much died. I mean, the last one, what, Ngozi or whatever,
Yep.
died. I think it shows of how dangerous AI can also be, like,
Yes,
and how much access we give it, how much attention we put towards AI. I mean, if you think about what's happening now, of we have AI and it's taking people's artwork and stuff, when it's not, people worked hard to draw whatever they did, and they're using pieces of people's artwork and making it its own thing. I think
yeah.
AI too much power.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think you're hitting the exact wording I was looking for, is that it's becoming it's a story that is a bit of a cautionary tale in how AI can very easily take over and destroy everything that we've worked so hard for. Because robots were not made by anybody else but man, right? Humanity is the one that created them. And then when humanity dies out, they're all that's left. But then you bring in AI, which has no actual component of humanity in it other than, the initial creation of it. But it lives on its own.
Yeah, which is dangerous. Like her Exos, for instance, she still has the ability to control them. AI, once you give it a certain amount of power, you can't control it. It does its own thing. It
Yeah.
of its own thing. It's not. There's nothing humane about AI.
No, there was something I was watching not that long ago that kind of talked about this. Oh my gosh, I can't remember, but it was talking about how an AI, like, oh, I remember. Do you ever watch the show Silicon Valley?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Anton from Silicon Valley, the AI creation that Guilfoyle created.
Mm-hmm.
That basically was what they were worried about. So anybody, I apologize if this is spoilers if you wanted to watch Silicon Valley, but we're going to put the caveat, spoilers here. So at the end of the series, there is this AI that one of the characters had been creating for basically his entire time in the show, was supposed to help make their algorithm for this platform better. Turned out that the AI essentially had created this massive influx of like power to where essentially like it could have basically run on its own and run amok on its own and been used to infiltrate massive amounts of information.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to kill it, they had to then kill the platform that this group had worked so long on, like 7 years of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically caused the end of the company that this whole show is about. And it just, that whole thing with the AI and rusted robots reminded me so much of that, because it's, it was the same kind of fear. AI is so easily able after a period of time to just take over everything. You give it enough information, it's going to start thinking on its own, and it's going to start creating its own things.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of scary.
Creates its own things, and then where does it leave us if it takes over every single thing, every single aspect of life? Like, what do
right.
There's no use for humans anymore, right?
Right. We used to think of AI as the robots, but AI has turned into something much more soulless. And robots may have AI intelligence in them, but AI itself is very different anymore than it used to be. Like, think of like iRobot, you know?
Just from like watching certain things about AI, AI may think that humanity is toxic to the environment due to how we treat the earth and the planet. And so in order to sustain, life or resources, we have to be extinguished. Like, that's how I feel like eventually, like, AI is going to turn on us. I feel like it already has. I mean, we give it so much power to the point where it's taking people's jobs away. It's a scary thing, and it makes me wonder. Like, Zelu had a point of writing everything, I think, regarding robots in general. like, yeah, you have resources that could help you, but you are still in control of your life and every aspect of what's in your life. But if
Right.
you give AI all that information, all that ability to do whatever it wants, do whatever it thinks, like, then it's over.
Yeah. I don't even know necessarily if that was entirely her point. That was just a really interesting thing for us to kind of look into.
Mhm.
Um, I know that part of the reason she wrote about the robots though was like, it kind of was an escape for her to think of like, okay, if I was a robot living in this, you know, life, it would be so much easier for me.
Right.
And it was very much an escape, but I love the fact that you can take that story and expound it on so many different things anymore because that's the whole beauty of art in general.
Hmm.
Art in general is so subjective and it can have so many different layers to it. And the initial layers are created by the actual artist, but then when you put it out to the world, it takes on a whole life of its own.
Yeah.
And we see that with movies, books, art, whatever.
Yeah. Where like even when she wrote this book, there were people that were coming for her and saying like this is the worst, terrible book ever read, stuff like that. Rusted robots, what's the point of it? And
Mhm.
which I think what we all can be guilty of when we're doing reviews. But I think we, especially you and I, we're not so brutal with our reviews.
Yeah,
We're not coming down on somebody because it's somebody's story. It's somebody's point of view. This is somebody's art. Um, and yes, there's gonna be people to judge, but
yeah. I had a comment on a video a couple weeks ago from like an older video, and it was a Stephen King book that I said I didn't like.
mm-hmm,
And they were like, "You have no taste." And I commented back, and I was like, "And you have no idea what the word opinion means."
right, like everyone's
Like,
open about their opinion.
right. And of course, it was on a Stephen King book. So the second that I say anything negative about him, you're going to get a floodgate of people that are like, "Oh, you don't understand." No, 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 no. But
But sometimes I feel like for some people that love Stephen King, I feel like that's the only thing they read.
right, exactly. You have no premise of anything else other than him. Like, get some color in your life. Get some, romance in your life. Whatever. Like, come on.
They're so like the world is huge. I feel like if we just stick to one author, we're not gonna see any of anybody else's point of views and their own culture or whatever it may be. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes I get comments like that too. If I read a book, or a certain book, and I had an opinion about it, I'm like, well, this is just my opinion. And
Right. And more like
and
with the city,
like, what am I gonna do?
right.
I'm
I'm just a random person on the internet sharing my opinion. If you
right,
have a problem with it, then go watch somebody else that shares your opinion. But
right.
like even like I said before too, like on a sprint where the City in Glass by Nevo,
Mm-hmm.
it went way over my head. I gave it 2 stars. Do I hate it for any reason because of who it's by or what it represents for that person? No.
Mm-hmm.
Did I enjoy it? Not really, but that's because I know that there's a lot of things in that I do not have a big enough brain for.
Like Nevo is very critical while they write their books. If you haven't read their other books, you probably would. It would go over your head.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I have. I read a couple like their one of their first books, I think, and it also went over my head. Like I have not given any of their books more than a 3 star because they're just the writing is beautiful.
mm-hmm.
It's very metaphorical. I can tell that, but I can't grasp it. Can't visualize it myself,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
They're not for me, and that's okay.
Okay. Not every book is gonna be for everyone.
Right.
You know.
And for anyone to go and say, "Oh, you have no taste because you didn't like this book." I got 2 fingers here that are going to be right for you that I'm not going to do right now. I mean, I probably could since this is unlisted, but still.
Yes, I'm listening. Go ahead.
You. Like, no. You
Right.
ain't going to tell me that I have no taste when all you read is the same thing over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Hybrid. I'm only
Spiel
one.
over.
I'm glad you're loving it because we loved it. It was really good. It had me emotional too. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh my god.
Like all this stuff. I'm like, can somebody just be positive and be happy for her?
Oh.
Yes. And also, like, this is getting away from the book, but just like what happened this week about regarding Daniel Green. I'm like,
oh,
I never
fuck
watched
him.
and never subscribed to him. And I'm like, I'm glad I didn't subscribe to him or watch him. I'm like, he's a piece of shit. Like,
No.
and I made sure to block him too. I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with you. I don't want your face to show up on any of my feeds or nothing.
No, and what's interesting is I've heard his name in passing a couple times with like, especially when it came to Brandon Sanderson and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't care because, I mean, yes, there's a minority when it comes to male booktubers, but he's a white male. I got plenty of other male booktubers I can follow
I didn't really
that are not him.
I didn't really care for him anyway, so that's why I didn't subscribe. I'm like, there's other people that I'll support, and I didn't really care about his reviews. And so I'm just like, my Goldsboro edition is on the way. Yay! I unfortunately watch him for the news. Oh,
see,
but that's okay. But we would have no idea what
I feel for Naomi. I'm so sorry that they went through what they did and that they're in so much pain. I couldn't watch their video only because I am too much of a sympathetic and emotional person. I would have been crying with them, and I did not have the emotional spoons to deal with that.
Yeah.
But I 100% support Naomi and what they're doing, and I'm glad that they spoke up.
Right.
I am so disheartened by all of the nastiness that they are getting from people.
Right. And in my head, I'm like, I hope people are unsubscribing and not supporting Daniel Green. I know Wraithmark had made a comment regarding Daniel. Yep. I wonder if anybody else is. I don't know if Brandon Sanderson is in his team. I don't know.
I don't know. But Wraithmark, I have to say, holy hell, that was the most eloquent and very well done response, considering how many people's paychecks they have to write out and how much they had already staked in him.
Yeah.
I applaud them for the type of statement they made. That was absolutely amazing. I understand from a business perspective, they cannot go back on the contracts that they currently have with him. Understandable, because that would make they would lose a lot of money on that they need to be able to pay their employees. But good on them for recognizing who their audience is and the detriment that this person has.
Yeah, I cry for them. Also sad. I was angry for them.
I was pissed, but I was like, I can't watch this because I don't have the spoons for it.
Like, okay, I need to make sure. I was like, no, I'm not subscribed to him, but let me just block him on every single thing. Like, because I don't want any of that on my feed whatsoever.
No.
That, yeah, I was so upset. So many people, including his book friends. Yeah. I didn't see. Yeah, they Wraithmark had made a comment on Instagram on one of the posts on Instagram. I think it was yesterday or the day.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I think.
Basically, their CEO went and made like a whole statement where they're like, "Listen, we hear you. We want to support Naomi. However, we have these contracts where Daniel Green, like, we have so much invested in him. We can't break these contracts without putting us at financial risk, kind of thing. But rest assured, we ain't gonna be working with him much longer, kind of thing."
Yeah.
Like, it was actually a really eloquent way of handling the situation, because plenty of other companies would either push it under the rug or they'd make it to be not as big of a deal. They actually they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah. But for Naomi, it goes to show, like, we don't know what someone is going through until they share experiences. And I think with Zelu in this book, she was sharing her experience, but in her own way.
Yeah. And everyone does it in their own way. That's part of like I keep talking about art because writing is such a beautiful form of art. It's a very visual form of art that is different than actual paintings or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But when you create something out of pain, out of sadness, out of any kind of like negative emotion, it is charged with that. And you can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel the pain, resentment, anger, frustration, anything when it comes to music, art, writing, video making. You can feel all of that in pieces of art. And oh my God, this book, I swear to God.
I love it so much. I'm like, I really want to meet her so bad.
I want to meet her. I want to give her hugs. I want to just quite honestly, if this is not my favorite book of the entire year, there is something wrong with me.
Definitely gonna be one of my top 10, like for sure. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love this book. I'm glad that I actually own it. Like
Yeah, same. And I'm so happy I have an autographed copy too.
I,
Like,
I'm not trying to buy a lot of books this year, but I'm glad I bought this one.
yeah,
Because wow, I'm like, okay, what other books you got coming?
right. I would be really surprised if she did come out with another literary fiction based,
Mm-hmm.
because not necessarily that like I wouldn't want one, but that takes a lot out of you when you write just sci-fi on
Yeah,
a regular basis.
I feel like for me, I'll get writer's block. I'm like, did I write this already?
Right, exactly. So I would be surprised if she came out with another one, but I would eat it up. Let's go.
Yes, same. His friend Jackson's response was everything for me. I think I saw that response as well. Yeah. I know you met her. You got I forget what book that you had her sign for you. But I remember you met her.
Rude.
Right. She just had to rub in our faces. Look at her.
Right. Rude.
Oh my gosh. But yeah.
Oh,
I gave it five stars for
if
sure.
I could have given it a million, I would have.
Right.
Even more than that.
I'm
Like,
gonna make sure to write a review on Goodreads so that she gets her props. I need to do that. I need to do more of that. I'm not consistent with writing reviews, but I'm definitely gonna be writing one for sure
mm-hmm.
for this one. Hopefully I don't see any bad reviews, even though there was a couple I saw on Goodreads, but I just ignored it. I'm like, okay, whatever.
And how much do you want to bet those were people that were either white and or not sci-fi enjoyers?
Yeah, I was around a mixture of that.
Yeah, I figured as much.
I'm like, if you're not open to certain things, I don't even know why you're gonna read it and just give give this book a 2 star. I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, you can have your own opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just yeah, she's amazing. Ugh, yes, I agree. I need to meet her one day if she comes to Columbus, which I don't
Don't
know if she's touring or
Nobody freaking comes to Michigan anymore, and it makes me mad. I will say though, Lauren Roberts came to Michigan for her books, but not my city, and I was really mad.
not. Oh, it's
It's
never
like,
Columbus. Sometimes it's either Cleveland or Dayton or sometimes Cincinnati. Sometimes.
yeah.
So
Although my independent bookstore that I've gone to for events when I met Ferda Abike Imede and Angeline Booley, um, that they basically are renovating and they're moving across the hall in the mall that they are based in to an old Bed Bath and Beyond. So their store is going to be a lot bigger and have a bigger event space. So they're hoping to do more events at this location, which I'm so excited for.
did you see Angeline Bully's newest book?
Yes, and I found the synopsis, and I'm so excited.
I was
I
like,
sent
you, because I know you. I was like,
I
yeah,
I
right now.
I saw the cover and I sent pictures to my mom. Found the synopsis and I sent pictures of that to my mom, and we're crying. We were crying. We were like, we're so excited for this.
I'm like, oh, I'm trying my best not to pre-order. I definitely will get a copy though, for sure, when it releases.
I hope to God that she comes with like comes to back to my area and I get to have my mom come with me this time for an author thing, because when we got to meet her in last summer. It was like the coolest thing for my mom. My mom was starstruck.
Aww.
And it was just, and I hope I can get my grandma to come with me this time, because she was gonna come to the last thing that I got to see Angeline Boulley at, but my grandma wasn't able to. So I hope that she comes back to my city. My grandma gets to come so that I can be like, Angeline, this is my grandma. This is the one I was telling you about.
Right. Aww, that'll be fun. That'll be really fun.
Because all three of us have read it and have read her books, and we've all loved them. Like, my mom and I cried when it came to some of the things that we learned about being a Chippewa Native American that we never, or a Ojibwe basically, that we never got to learn. And my grandma, who learned very little of it, like, she was like, I know these things. These were things that I was taught when I was a kid.
Aww.
And just, it was just such an amazing bonding moment. And I will be forever grateful for that from Angeline.
That's awesome. Yeah, but I don't think I have nothing else for Grind's Book. I feel like we broke down a lot of stuff.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I honestly think we covered a lot. And I still could talk about this book forever.
Same. Like, I will talk about her dang sisters. Ugh, they got on my freaking nerves. I was over it. Her sisters.
Yeah, same. That eldest sister, I swear, like, as an eldest sister myself, I'm like, girl, shut the fuck up. Like, this is none of your business.
Yeah.
Leave it alone.
Yeah. It was just, yeah. That first interview we got it from her sister, I'm like, dang, why are you talking about your sister like this? It's like right from the jump it talks about.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure it was all jealousy. Like,
yeah, I was about to say that. I'm like, you sound really jealous right now. Like,
she's hating because she ain't her.
Oh man. And then I love the fact that Ngozi was also Nettie's sister too, but she put her in this book and everything. I was like, oh, this is cute.
Yeah.
Stella was gonna name her daughter, if it was a girl,
Ngozi.
Oh my god.
I loved it so much. Like, this book.
Like, I had such a great time with it. I wasn't bored with it.
Never.
It was a lot of like cry. Like, I cried. Like,
oh yeah, I did too.
Thinking of my life and the people that were in my life that wasn't really supportive, and I had to really dig deep and realize, like, okay, they don't need to be in my life. They're not worthy to be in my life. Like, I was just like, man, this book hits hard. I liked it. I like the pacing. I like the transitioning of, like, from going to when she writes more about Rusted Robots and then going into her life and stuff.
And then the transitions between, like, those in the interviews, like, this was just so well crafted. Like, it was, like, just everything about it was perfect.
Because if it was anybody else, I have a feeling that we probably wouldn't have liked how it transitioned. Like, she mastered this.
Yeah. Oh my god, I can't. I just can't with this. It's so good. Yeah. This is one of those things where it's like, I'm going to act like Melissa McCarthy anytime anyone asks me about my favorite book recently. I'm going to be like, read the book! Read it!
Oh, man. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm sorry, Brie, if we spoil you. I feel like we said most of the stuff before you got here.
Yeah, I hope so. Oh, God. This book. It makes me so excited. This is one of those books where I'm like, if you read this and you don't feel something out of it, there's something fundamentally wrong with you.
What'd you say?
I said this is one of those books where, like, if you read this and don't feel something out of it, there's something fundamentally wrong with you.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of things that you can get from this book in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't like one part, I feel like you're going to enjoy something.
Yeah.
So, man, it was really good. And I'm like, dang, I want some more. So I was like looking into her catalog and I'm like, okay, what books have I not read yet by her?
Yeah, Akata Witch is definitely higher on my need to read list. I think I'm gonna try to get it done in March because my TBR, I've already started figuring out what my TBR for March is gonna be, based on book clubs and stuff like that that have already released, like their books kind of
Mhm.
thing, or like read-alongs, like year-long challenges. I'm pretty sure my TBR is gonna be pretty light considering the last couple of months. So I should definitely be able to get started with the Kata Witch this in March.
Yeah. Like I think I read the first book of Venti. I think there was two more books I need to read in that series. I read Akata Witch, really loved. I know there's gonna be more in that.
Hmm.
I don't know when it's gonna happen, when the next one's coming out, but I think you'll enjoy Akata Witch. I love Akata Witch so much.
I'm sure I will. I think that if I really liked her literary fiction, I'm going to love her other types of fiction because she's just got a masterful way of writing, in my opinion, in general.
Yeah, and her disability like representation, I love it. I
Hmm.
truly love it, and so freaking good, so good. But I think that's it. I think I have some sprints scheduled too.
Yeah, we actually are running over on time for it.
Okay. Well, all right. I guess we'll end this right here, and then I'll invite everybody for sprints.
All right.
But thank y'all for coming. Thank you for pretty much listening in as we're telling all the spoilers and everything and how our aspects are about the book. But I hope y'all enjoyed this discussion, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.